why Daniel used the term Son of Man, and so did Ezekiel. Daniel and Ezekiel are the ones that came up with the term Son of Man. So way before the Maccabees, way before the Roman Empire, that book of Daniel was written, and that term, Son of Man, was there. So Daniel is the one, and Ezekiel is the one, that term, that gave that term, Son of Man. We got it? We understand it? It's the term Son of Man. And it's in Aramaic, Ben Ersh. In the Greek is Hutos to Oputio. And in Hebrew, it's Keba Enes. Either way, it's the Son of Man. So I want you to understand something. What happened to Jesus was not a cosmic accident. This is why he came. Daniel chapter 9, verse 26. Listen to this. Meshach Najib. And I'm going to explain to you what that term is. Then after, this is verse 26. Then after the 62 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off. If I had a mic, I'd drop it. If I had a mic, I'd drop it. It says Meshach. The Meshach. Meshach is the term for what? Messiah. Meshach, that's the Hebrew term. That is where the Greek gets Christos. So I want you to understand something. And I don't mean to be facetious, but a lot of people say Jesus Christ like they're saying his name. No, Jesus was his name, which is Yeshua. But if you were going to call him properly, like I'm Melvin Rosa, if you were going to call me properly in the 1st century A.D., you would say Yeshua, Jesus, son of Joseph. That's the way you would have just said his name if you're talking about on a birth certificate or on a government document. So Christ is not his last name. Christ is a title. Christos, which in Hebrew or the Greek means anointed one. But Daniel adds a little spice to it and says Najib. That's where in English it's translated prince. So Najib is chief in Hebrew. You can translate the word Najib as prince, as supervisor, or as a chief or chieftain. So Messiah, Mashiach, means anointed one. We commonly would think of anointed one talking about like a prophet, right? So he says Mashiach, anointed one. But Daniel adds the extra spice and says Najib. So we have anointed prince. We get where we're going with this? Anointed prince. Anointed chief. Think about this. What does the first verse of the New Testament say? What is the very first verse of the New Testament? If Jesus was just another guy, there's two names that are associated with Jesus. The first verse of the New Testament. The very first verse of the New Testament gives us a spiritual slap right in the face. The record, Matthew chapter 1, verse 1. This verse is loaded. The record of the genealogy of Yeshua the Mashiach, Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. David. But I want you to know something about David, about David. 2 Samuel, verse 16. 2 Samuel, chapter 7, verse 16. And I want you to know the significance of this. Remember when David does that mess up, right? We all know the story about Bathsheba, right? Who was the prophet that came and spoke to David and said, you're the one who did all this nonsense here? It was the prophet Nathan. The same prophet that came to David to correct him about Bathsheba. Now, I want you to think about something. You're coming to a head of state. You're coming to a prime minister, king, president level person, and you're saying, buddy, you need to get your house in order and get it now. So he's the one that did that, right? Years later, God sends Nathan to speak to David again. And he says this, 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 16. And I'm going to teach you another Hebrew word today. So Najid, Mishak Najid, anointed prince, but you're going to learn another Hebrew word today. Your house and your kingdom shall endure before me for what? Forever. Your throne shall be established for what? Forever. The Hebrew word is olam. We pronounce it olam. Olam. O-L-A-M. That is not the way a Jewish person would write it down. That is the way we pronounce it to help us who speak English and Spanish or French or German. Olam. Olam. So what's the word? Olam. Okay. Every single time, and you can talk to Dr. Strong about this one, okay, in the lexicons. Every single time in the Old Testament in Hebrew that you read the word forever, eternity, everlasting to everlasting, when it says God is what? From everlasting to what? Everlasting. Anything that has to do with Abraham, anything that has to do with David, anything that says olam, anything that says forever is the word olam. It means in Hebrew time without end. A straight line that has no ending. In math, you call that what? Infinity. So when you're in high school at East River and Boone High School and Winter Park High School, and they teach you that line, it's infinity. Time without end. That is the word that is used by the prophet Nathan without an expiration date to David. But what does it say to his heir? This Mashiach Najid is the heir. He's the inheritor. He's the one that the will goes to. Again, Daniel uses the same word that Nathan uses. Listen to this. And to him was given, this is talking about the Son of Man. I'm going to read it from the beginning, verse 13. I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven, one like a son of man was coming. And he came up to the Ancient of Days, and it was presented before him. What was presented before him? To him was given dominion, glory, and a kingdom. Now I want you to think about what verse in the New Testament, when Jesus is speaking to somebody, would this verse be? Glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and men of every language might serve him. Doesn't that sound like John 3:16? For God so loved the what?
World.
For God so loved the what?
World.
That the Son of Man and a kingdom and a glory, that all peoples, nations, and men of every language. Is there anybody in this room that's been left out? That's got you covered. 5 ways from Sunday. There is not a single human being in this room, or if we filled up Camping World. Hallelujah. If we filled up Camping World right now, it doesn't matter who is in Camping World. It doesn't matter who went to FIFA. I call it soccer. You can call it football, and we can argue all day long. But everybody that watched FIFA in the World Cup is what? Covered. And a kingdom and glory and dominion, that all the peoples, nations, and men of every what? Language.